Since its release in 2013, The Conjuring has become one of the most popular horror movies of this century. Not only did it spawn a well-received sequel, but it started another cinematic universe for the Warner Brothers, with 2 Annabelle spin-offs, The Nun and the planned Crooked Man. But how much of The Conjuring's spine-chilling terror was faithful and honest to the true story it was based on? Well, despite making audiences wet themselves with unforgettable and implausible frights like a ghost playing with children's feet, girls being thrown about like rag dolls, and an old hag pouncing off wardrobes, the real Lorraine Warren insists that many of the film's harrowing moments genuinely occurred. However, while the real Lorraine is adamant that the film was more reality than fiction, there are a few inconsistencies that, astonishingly, make the truth more disturbing than Hollywood's masterful recreation. So without further ado, I am Kirsten from What Culture, and this is the true story of The Conjuring. Number 6. The house was haunted by many ghosts. After moving into the 14-room farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island in January 1971, despite the property seller's warning to keep the lights on at night for safety, the parents immediately noticed paranormal activity. Like the well-made horror adaptation's slow build-up, the ghosts of the old Arnold estate first made their presence known by being rapscallion pranksters. They would hide the family's broom and place small piles of dirt in the centre of a newly clean kitchen floor. In both the film and reality, Carolyn researched the history of the estate and discovered that it had been home to a bunch of gruesome fatalities. Andrea Perron, the oldest of the sisters, said that the farmhouse belonged to the extended family of the Arnolds for 8 generations, and the Black Book of Burnville confirms that during its existence the land had been host to 2 drownings, 2 suicides by hanging, 1 suicide by poison, and the rape and murder of 11-year-old Prudence Arnold. April, the youngest of the 5 Perron girls, befriended an entity named Rory in Wan's flick. In reality, the boy was named Johnny Arnold, and all the Perron girls were fond of his presence. Still, despite changing his name, the film was honest to him, having been hanged in the farmhouse's attic in the mid-18th century. A benevolent apparition not mentioned in the film, however, was Mrs. Arnold, an entity reported to having sweetly kissed the girls on their forehead after tucking them in at night. While that does sound creepy rather than comforting, it was most definitely better than when the spirits told the sisters there were 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall. Number 5. A lot of the entities were aggressive. Despite not portraying Mrs. Arnold's motherly devotion or mentioning the supposed corpses in the walls, the film did depict the rotting smell the parents endured, along with the routine of the spirits annoyingly waking the family up most mornings. In reality, this happened at 5:15, with the entities lifting the beds and tossing aside whoever was in them, as opposed to the film's witching hour of 3:07, where framed pictures were continuously knocked off in conjunction with 3 slams against the walls. One of the most horrifying incidences not depicted in the film was a night where all of the household's ghosts surrounded Carolyn and Roger's bed like a coven of witches. In an interview with The Blaze, Andrea said that the spirits had burning torches and used them to regularly torture her mother with fiery images. Andrea also mentioned that instead of birds committing suicide by breaking their necks, it was bats who circled the farmhouse and terrorised the family by entering through the chimney. Another difference is that while in the movie the parents frequently visited the cobwebbed cellar to investigate strange noises and to accompany Ed and Lorraine, the real Roger and Carolyn avoided the spirit hotspot as much as possible. It was only when the house's heating equipment failed that poor Roger was guilt-tripped into venturing down there all alone to make repairs with a cold, stinking presence behind him. Number 4. There was a wicked witch. While there were a rowdy party of kind and mean-spirited entities in the Perrons' household, the film declared that the foulest of them all was a witch named Bathsheba Sherman. Although the real Lorraine and Karen vouch for the Bathsheba being the wickedest, Andrea has mentioned that there was an even more aggressive entity left undepicted, one of whose acts were so heinous that Andrea refused to speak in detail about the ordeal, noting only that it was a very bad male with 5 little girls. Still, in alignment with the movie, Bathsheba was a vicious ghost who viewed herself as the household's mistress. Born Bathsheba Thayer in Rhode Island in 1812, she became a housewife to farmer Judson Sherman in 1844. Although jealousy of her reported beauty could have been the true reason behind why she was accused of being a witch, along with the fact that condemning women of practicing black magic used to be a way of passing the time, the protests against her began after an infant died in her care. When it was discovered that a large sewing needle had been speared through the deceased's baby's skull, the townspeople uncompromisingly believed that Sheba sacrificed the infant as an offering to Satan. Despite a court finding her innocent of any wrongdoing, the townsfolk's continuous smearing of her name is why Andrea reckoned she was so bitter, malevolent, and grotesque in the afterlife. Number 3. Sheba did not hang herself. Both in the film and reality, Carolyn was the victim of Sheba's abuse. While the movie suggested that Sheba wanted to possess Carolyn to continue her tradition of making mothers murder their youngest, the real Sheba was said to be infatuated with Roger and thus wanted to take the place of his wife. So instead of the pinches, slaps, and screams to get out that Carolyn received, Roger was on the receiving end of some light-fingered caresses and inappropriate pokes when on his own. When a friend of the parents attended one of the Warrens' university seminars and told them about the family's ordeal, it wasn't a hanging corpse and a pair of stinky feet, but rather a circular bruise on Carolyn's ankle, which led Lorraine to declare that Sheba was the demonic mistress trying to take over a housewife. Rather than hanging herself from a tree to curse the land, there are various legends online which say Sheba's body turned to stone when she died, or that her demise came from a bizarre form of paralysis that terrified doctors. Although most of these outlets agree that Sheba died as an old woman on May 25, 1885, 4 years after her husband's death, her demise was likely from old age rather than mythological brilliance. Number 2. The Warrens did not save the family. The Warrens investigated the household on numerous occasions in the 70s and announced that Sheba had stabbed Carolyn in the ankle with her infamous sewing needle, but they did not rid the property of paranormal activity. Unlike the movie where Ed performed an improvised exorcism and rescued April from having to permanently wear a pair of scissors for a hat, the Warrens refused to conduct an exorcism and were kicked out after performing a seance in the cellar. Although the exorcism didn't happen, Andrea secretly witnessed the seance and saw her mother temporarily become possessed, speak a strange language in an unknown voice, levitate in her seat, and get thrown across the room. It was then that Roger became so concerned about his wife's mental stability that he kicked the Ghostbusters out of his home and told them to never come back. Not only did the Warrens' real investigation not end happily ever after, Andrea claimed that the duo only made things worse for the family as they continued to live on the farm. Yes, despite the ghosts slamming doors, levitating beds, and possessing bodies, the parents stayed in the estate until they were financially stable enough to sell it in 1980. Number 1. Did any of this really happen? Whether any of the parents' ordeal was true or not is controversial. Neurologist Stephen Novella, president of the New England Skeptical Society and avid critic of the Warrens, said that the famous duo were good at telling ghost stories with no real legitimacy behind them. Norma Sutcliffe, the current owner of the infamous property, even compiled evidence to disprove the parents' story due to the movie's success, resulting in an invasion of her and her husband's privacy by onlookers and trespassers. During a conversation with Andrea, Norma stated that a minister and his wife had lived in the house and never experienced any heebie-jeebies from Sheba or any of the Arnolds prowling the halls. Lorraine attributed this lack of paranormal activity to his profession, declaring that a minister would not want to confirm that the property is haunted. Regardless of Novella and Norma's standpoints, Lorraine still insists that the investigation continues to haunt her, and Andrea swears that she and her mother would rather swallow their tongues than tell lies, praising James Wan's masterpiece as a beautiful tapestry of both truth and fiction. So there we go. What are your views on this story? Leave us a comment below and let us know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. But for now, I've been Kirsten from What Culture, and I'll see you in the next one.
Look, my son. Look at the marvel that I have created. Comics. They called me a fool for trying to put a dead meme onto a t-shirt. A damn bold fool! A damn bold fool with an ass that won't quit. It got quite personal towards the end there. But look who's laughing now! Quiet! Quiet, my son, my ugly son, for my other creation rises. Look at the quality fabric, hand-stitched by blind orphans. The perfect letter spacing calculated so meticulously that Rich Hudson had an erection for months about it. and a colouring so deep that I had to buy the dye off the dark web. Oh, for God's sake, Josh!
Sorry.
Marvel. Oh no, the beast has grown angry, angered by our drab fashion choices. I am such a fool to think that it wouldn't try to infect us with its perfect design. Quick, we must do something to appease the beast. Why don't we buy one from shop.worldculture.com? Oh. Look, it's already got Scott Nash.
Oh no!
But where can I buy one? Are you kidding me? This is why I don't give you any extra lines. But also at shop.whatculture.com. Quick, let's go and buy one right now. Let's go buy one right now.
Right now.
Oh, don't you try hard now. You've already lost your bit. Oscar's in the f***ing bin. Ah, there we go. Doesn't that look better? I feel so virile and alive, and it's also fixed your hump. That's actually pretty good. Now, do yourself a favour and act like your mum and spread the love, aka her legs, and buy yourself one of these glorious dead memes on a t-shirt, courtesy of this handsome chap right here. You're very, very welcome.
Cut!
Jesus Christ, mine is so
It's
itchy.
all wet.
What? It stinks. I pissed on yours.
The worst font ever. I want to die.